One more time. You ready?
Well, that's impressive. Hey, today, Nick, I'm excited because we're going to talk some drivers. Paul is one of the most interesting folks out there to talk club design with, and hopefully we're going to learn a bit more about these today.
That wasn't his best effort, though, Cordy. Sorry. He just now found Paul.
That's okay. We're only 4 weeks in. I'm sure in a couple months he'll be really good at it. But yeah, reporting live from the course today, Nick.
Which course are you at?
This is the Rochester Golf and Country Club in Rochester, Minnesota.
Ooh, so that's not a virtual background.
This is not a virtual background.
Good call. Well, Paul, it's awesome to have you talk to you a little bit here because I think we talked about it briefly earlier. Probably could do this for like 3 or 4 hours because I think while teaching is interesting to me for sure, and it's most of my job, I'm actually way more interested in talking about CGs, MOIs, and driver design these days. So this will be fun.
You're a golf geek at heart, huh?
Well, it's funny. I think that I feel like there are so many misconceptions and misunderstanding and so much more you could do about golf instruction, but the club fitting world and how I watch people test clubs and even the discussion about what reality is in the club fitting world seems like even more archaic than some of the golf instruction I hear. So that's where I'm finding it more interesting.
Well, I think to give people credit, like it's just hard, right? Golf is hard. Science is hard. Golf science is really hard.
Yeah, and know that I don't mean that as everybody bunch of dumb. But you're right. It's such in its infancy. We have some auditor machines that measure MOI and CG, and we can project the CG on a golf club's face, which I want to show you, and compare drivers versus drivers on MOI and the depth of the CG. It can get like nerdy, heady stuff. But that's important for people to be able to understand simply so that they can make good buying decisions. So that's what I'm excited to talk to you about now and watch Cordy, make a bunch of double bogeys.
As long as he drives it well with that ping driver, I don't really care what he does with the rest.
That's his favorite club. That's his favorite club. So can you give me a little background as to why we're spending any time talking about you, Paul?
No.
None whatsoever? Okay.
Paul, what do you do?
What do I do? I run the engineering team of Ping.
Yeah.
In fact, you can see the glorious Ping Puddle Lab behind me.
It is back.
Not real, sadly. I'm in my home office, but home office is pretty.
What are you spending most of your days doing now then?
So I oversee the group. So we have a team of talented designers. That's our mechanical engineers, the ones who create. You just held up the driver head there. They're the ones who actually create the club. I am not the club creator. I am a math geek. So you talked about geeking out on CGs and moments of inertia. That's my world.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Well,
that kind of stuff.
We've never compared notes like specifically on these CGs and MOI placements. So I'm looking forward to having that.
You're going to surprise me with them, is that?
Well, I'm not trying to surprise you for sure. More of just I want to see what you think of some of the math problems and some of the conclusions that I've got here. Cordy, was that your 8th or 9th shot?
That was trying to make par.
Okay, well, you're thinking about that. The interview we did at the PGA show, I still haven't really trimmed that up and used it the way that I wanted to, Paul. So let me ask you one question and get going here. Everybody's making composite crown drivers. You are not this year. Can you explain why you've chosen to go that direction?
Sure. I'll try to do it without getting super long-winded and technical, but I probably will anyway. But it comes down to we'll use whatever material we can to get the best overall properties. Right? You start with performance and work backwards to what creates the performance. And so titanium's great because it's strong, it's light, and you can shape it in all sorts of cool ways. And one thing that's great about metals in general is you can flex them and they give that energy right back. So titanium in general is a hard metal to beat because it has all those properties, right? There's a reason why springs are made of metal, because metals return the energy. Carbon fiber is great because it's super strong. So you can go for, just for flat out weight savings, you can make something really strong and really light. The issue is when you combine the two, you've got to actually join them somewhere. So at some point, you've got to have this overlap. So we're really good at making titanium super thin, which is a big manufacturing advantage of ours. So we get our crowns down to, it's about 2.5 sheets of paper, or $2.5 bills thick. You can save weight by going even, not necessarily thinner, but even lighter with a piece of carbon fiber. But then what we find for our designs is you end up adding it all back in at this joint where you've got 2 layers together, but you've got to glue them together somehow. So the minute that we think we can make a ping driver that's got carbon fiber in it that's better, we'll do it. But as of right now, you look at all the knowledge we have and all the prototypes we have, the best driver we made has really thin titanium sections.
Yeah.
Which isn't to say that, next year or 2 years from now or 5 years from now, we come out with one that has carbon fiber or whatever, some other material.
Yeah.
We're not anti-carbon fiber. It's quite cool for what it does, but our best driver is titanium.
Yeah, right. So everyone else making carbon fiber drivers is just better at it than you are. Is that what you're saying?
Maybe that's it. Maybe they figured out. So it's either we're better at making titanium or they're better at making.
There you go. We can spin it that way if you want.
But at the end of the day, right, it's just the customer doesn't care what it's made of. The customer cares how far it goes and whether it finds its balance.
You got it. And that's the story that isn't told enough, is that the carbon fiber on the top of some of the drivers may be better, as you're alluding to. Might not be, though, because the story that's missed is the gluing that's needed. So I get that part for sure. Hey, I've got another question here for you. I have a 410 SFT. We can talk about the CGMOI there. I've got a 410 LST and a 410 Plus. Where's the 410 Max?
Well, the 410 Plus really is the max to an extent. And we did the 400. When we did the G400, it was a little smaller, and then we did the Max as a bigger version. With the 410, we kind of split the difference a little bit, and that Plus version is kind of right in between the 400 and the 400 Max. And so we tried to get kind of the best of both worlds. The challenge we have is, like, you want to have lots of options, right? We want to design the perfect driver for every customer, but at some level, you've got to make it simple enough for the customer to find. If we give you 12 different options of ping drivers, it makes your job as a club fitter really difficult now.
Yeah.
If we can do it with 3 instead of 4, we'll do it. And so we believe there's a place for the LST, which is the low spin, and customer who needs to bring the spin down, like me. We believe there's a place for the SFT, that customer who doesn't want to miss right and wants to square up that ball fly. And then we have the Plus for kind of probably the bigger part of the market, the biggest masses. So it's just trying to minimize the number of options, but give you enough to cover everyone.
Yeah, I think you did a nice job of that. We're going to look at those CGs next to talk about that part. But I think that gets to the point. Tell me if you think this is incorrect as well, that because you've got 3 drivers, they're very specific to the player. You've done a nice job of making sure you categorize all these players and get a driver that will fit pretty well. It seems even more important to actually get fit for a driver by someone who knows what they're doing. Is that how you're suggesting people buy golf clubs, or what's your methodology if you had to give somebody an instruction? Here's how you go buy a driver.
So you asking me what is Ping, the custom fitting company's official position on custom fitting?
Correct.
Yes, honestly, I think there's so much performance that you can gain just by going and talking to someone who knows what they're doing in custom fitting. Like, it's not, we try to make it as easy as we can, but it's not the easiest thing for a golfer to fit themselves, right? We're expecting you, we just said golf science is hard.
Yeah.
And we can't expect everyone to be an expert on golf science. So if you can go and talk to somebody who can give you a little help, it's huge. And depending on which study you look at, we've done loads of studies on the benefits of fitting. It can be 25 yards,
yeah, right.
Easily, that you gain from custom fitting, which is enormous. Like, why on earth would you not want to get custom fit if it can be worth 25 yards to you?
I like your style, man.
Yeah, I can't recommend people enough to get fit, because you just don't know what things feel like until you even just experiment and try different things. And so many people get locked in of, hey, I always use this one type of shaft. I've used it for 5 years and I'm going to just put it into every driver. Like, you just get locked into these things. You don't realize all other opportunities out there to get a better feel or get a better fit to hit it farther. So
Then you have the
can't agree more.
Paul, how often are you suggesting someone, like let's say a serious golfer, Cordy, for example, how often should he be fit for a driver?
Our recommendation is every time you go to buy a new club, get fit. If you're buying a new club every 6 months, your swing probably hasn't changed a ton in that 6 months, but there still may be some like slightly surprising things about how one model compares to another. There's no standard specs in the golf industry.
Yeah.
Even things like how different companies measure length can vary a little bit. And before you get into shaft flexes and all this kind of stuff. So, and it's so easy to get a custom fitting, right? It's not like there's only 6 places in America that offer it. Why wouldn't you get a custom fitting when they're everywhere?
Yeah.
So we would, if you've never had a fitting before, that's going to be your biggest possible benefit. You learn a lot about your swing in your first fitting. If you're like Cordy and you're buying new clubs every 6 months, it's still good to get the fitting, but it's maybe not. You're not going to learn this new thing that you never understood about your swing.
Yeah. I always say it's the cheapest investment in your game, and not to like cheapen a product that a fitting is supposed to be cheaper and expensive, but it's a great investment into your golf game. And anyone who's serious should get a club fitting.
What would you recommend, Paul? So I've had this driver for 2 years now. Hit it great, love it. I have zero complaints. Is there any reason to go get another fit, or am I good to just keep trucking along with this?
Well, how did you just? Yeah, we should probably watch you swing, and that's. He's about to answer our question right now.
I wish I could.
We feel like we've made improvements with the G410. We feel like that he will see some benefits of getting fit for a G410. The longer you leave it, the more those benefits stack up. Like every year, we make incremental improvements to our clubs. If you haven't been fit for a driver in 5 years, you're going to see a bigger difference than Cordy, who's pretty well fit for his G410. His G400. But we still feel confident that you'll notice some differences in that 410.
Yeah, and I can attest to that too, looking at the CG placements and the MOI gains, but also the depth of the CG back. You've made some strides for sure every year. So I'm with you there. And this year, in any year in particular, I've been measuring these for a few years now. This year, every manufacturer I've found has made at least something that's improved along all of their club head designs. So, I think your industry sometimes gets a lot of heat for how can this really be different? We can't really do much else. You're still improving the way that these things work. Cordy, where did you hit that one? The left rough or the right rough?
That's the left rough on that one.
The better rough.
All right, let's take a look at this picture I had up for a second, then Cordy started blabbing, so I turned it off. But this is the 410 Plus. The red dots here are the center of gravity based upon how you're going to move the weight around. Let me grab that head here real quick. So you've got
you're taking the 410 driver and moving the weight into the heel or toe position.
Yep. Yeah. Measuring the projected CG. So it's not the horizontal CG. It's using the club face normal for that.
Yeah.
This driver is one of my favorites, quite honestly. So the MOI at 5385 is definitely one of the higher MOIs. So that's my measurement off of my machines. There's nothing that says that other people couldn't measure this differently. But I feel really good about how these have come out, and the measurements look awesome. And then how much you can move the center of gravity. To have a 5385 CG on my machines and not raise the center of gravity, like where I'm putting a cursor to have it too high on the club, which is then the same thing as hitting a shot low on the face and having a bunch of spin on it. I think you've done a nice job of this. And then the CGs with the most draw location to the most fade location, they're not quite to scale in this, but pretty close. You've got a wide throw on how much the ball can curve from the adjustability that's built into this. You see anything?
The art of it's trying to get a noticeable enough difference, but not getting into compromising the overall performance of the club. So we kind of aim for like that difference from neutral to draw setting or neutral to fade settings, about an average of 10 yards. So that would be taking all your shots, making your whole dispersion move 10 yards left and then another 10 yards left. Mm-hmm. And so it works out. it's roughly 1/10 of an inch movement in the center of mass gives you that 10 yards.
Yep.
So it's funny. I think a lot of people think it doesn't seem like it's moved that much, but that's all you need to make a pretty big difference. You deliver the club when it's in the draw setting, you deliver it a little more closed, and then you get a little bit of this what we call gearing, where just the club closes a little during impact. So you add the two up, and it adds up to 10 yards on the course.
Yeah. So I'm going to draw a line as best I can on a Zoom call.
That's
So
pretty good.
That's not bad, right? That was pretty good for me. So I'm going to draw a straight line vertical so we can get an understanding of what this is for. And then we'll use this far red CG right here. So that's a toward center of gravity location. Anywhere on this side of that red line is going to give you a shot that's effectively in the heel. And I will just put an H there as well. And then anything on this side is effectively a toe hit. So now when you look at that, you've got any shot that's hit pretty close to the middle, about where my cursor's at now, is actually effectively a heel hit when you move the CG to the toe. That's why this piece is so important, and it's one that I wish I understood much better when I was trying to play golf, because I would have just altered how I hit a ball on the face instead of trying to change my swing. So with the most fade bias location of the center of gravity, what you're just doing is not a whole lot of, it's not changing the rotation of the club so much through the shot that makes the ball change. It's really just changing how you're using the horizontal gear effect to hit a shot differently.
You get a little of both. You get a little bit that as we move the mass further out, you actually deliver it just a little more open.
Yep.
Now we're taking mass, we're effectively making it just a tiny bit harder to square up.
Okay, that's interesting because I get that and I see that as a possible example. I'm not noticing that in any human testing, and that's human testing is by far the worst way to test clubs in my opinion. But what are you seeing?
Real golf. I mean, it's good when it's real golf, but it's just very messy, right?
Humans there's too many variables to iron out. You can't isolate enough of them really for human testing.
It's pretty hard to separate those two things. Like unless you've got a full-on motion capture system,
right?
We're talking about trying to measure like very small numbers of degrees, and impact lasts a half a millisecond, and so getting the result of what happened, where did the ball go, is easy enough. But really breaking down what was the true face angle impact really is really hard.
Yeah.
To get a ballpark is easy enough, but to get down to like sub-degree accuracy, remember that face is curved too, right? So the face angle on the toe is actually more open than the face angle on the heel. So challenging stuff.
For sure. So I'm working off the principle here of CG placement is really giving you the gear effect that's helping curve the ball. If there's another element in there, there are several, probably 50 other ways you could identify how this ball is going to travel the way it does just based on club design. But I think that's the one that people miss the most, is the value in moving those center of gravities around. So that one's really good. And to be
why don't you think people move that around more? Like I've never played around with it. I've never changed it. Like why isn't this more common with so much value, on the ability to do this?
I think it's the understanding of why. And then most people move it one way or the other, but maybe not extreme enough. That's where I'd tell people to start. Like in Paul's driver, you have a heel setting for draw. You've got a neutral setting for the straighter flight, or moving the center of gravity closer to the middle. And then that toe setting. And there are 3 settings in there that are pretty extreme. I wouldn't tell people to start with their driver a little bit off center. Just go to one way or the other. Get a big enough change in how you're going to hit a shot that way in the movement of the CG, and that's your start. Does that seem right, Paul?
Yeah, I think maybe quite a few people are a little nervous about messing up their golf game by playing with things that they don't fully understand. I mean, I'm a natural tinkerer, and I just press all the buttons until something breaks. But I think the more people understand how it works, the more comfortable they'd be messing around with it. Just try it, right? What's the worst that can happen? You miss a few fairways, and then you can always go back to where you were.
Yep, and that's awesome. That's probably why we're trying to do this education, is just to show how that works. So let me see if I can turn this off. Annotation off. All right, let's do the LST. So Oh, now I got to clear that off. Oh, now the trickiness comes in here. See if I can do a little eraser.
Advanced PowerPoint skills.
You're doing great, Nick. I'm very impressed.
Well, you know, while you're out there just whacking it around, where Paul and I are doing the hard stuff. Here's your LST. You have the horizontal CG right in the middle of the face, which is perfect. I don't see too many of them. They're actually in the middle. And the MOI at 5178. Anything that you'd mention about this driver that's a good talking point for CG MOI?
Yeah, so basically what gives you the low spin technology is moving the center of mass down a little. So if you compare the CG like for like of the LST versus the standard, having the center of mass a little lower and more forward can help give you less spin.
Yeah.
The issue is if you go to the extreme, you take away a ton of the stability. So you're trading off. We want low spin because that gives you that great ball flight. We don't want it to be all over the place. So you're trying to trade off low enough spin, but still super stable. So
Yeah.
that's our big thing with the LST.
And you define that as super stable. Am I correct in just stating that your MOI is just dropping too much, so those mishit shots are just really bad?
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, so a moment of inertia is that spread of the mass, and we kind of, I think stable is a good way to explain it, because what it does for you is when you mishit it, and we all mishit it, even Cordy, it doesn't twist as much, and so you get a more similar ball flight. So your mishits are closer to your good hits.
Yep, fair enough. So this would be your driver for the guys who spin it too much. I think that'd be a good place to start. You could certainly play really nice golf with that, the Max as well.
Yeah, and more of the high speed players need to keep the spin down. Like if you've got a lot of speed, it's more important to keep the spin down. But there's plenty of lower speed players that also benefit from the LST.
Yeah, and that's a good point. When we have, we see the second biggest distance gain in players who have a scratch handicap out of all the segments that we could, all the way up to say your 36 handicappers, because we lower the spin by a couple hundred RPMs and make the biggest difference gain for those guys. So it's almost like the way to benefit from the fitting the most, the two groups that benefit the most, everyone does. Everyone's gaining positive yardage out of the club fitting, but you're the worst and the best seem to be our biggest gainers on the club fitting side. Do you see something similar to that?
Yeah, I could definitely. Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
The worst can't hit the middle of the face, so you give them a driver that enables a more solid strike, and they're often doing better. And the best reducing spin typically is our answer. So LST is a really good one for that one. SFT, 4873 for the MOI. So that's the measure of forgiveness. I think I skipped over that enough, but we're hinting at it. So you have a 4873 MOI, whereas your plus was at 5385 with it in the neutral setting. Can you explain why you prefer to lower the MOI slightly for draw bias drivers?
We don't prefer to lower the MOI ever, really. I mean, you're always trying to maximize the MOI without trading off other things. So if you're going to move the center of mass a little heel side, you get this natural lowering of the moment of inertia. It's impossible to spread the mass out quite as well as when the CG is right in the middle. And so you even saw that. I don't know if you took moment of inertia measurements for all three of the settings in the plus.
Yes.
The moment of inertia does go down a little every time you go away from the center.
Absolutely, absolutely.
With this SFT, we've gone, this is for someone who really doesn't want to be leaking the ball right too far for a right-hander.
Yeah.
So that the center of mass is actually that bit further to the heel. It's got more draw bias to it. And the idea was, let's really try to optimize the mass properties in that setting. So this is as good as we can make the MOI with the CG where it is.
Yeah.
So although it's lower, it's actually a lot higher than it would be if we tried to make an adjustable driver with the CG there. That makes sense.
Well, and I thought it was for most of the draw bias drivers that are out there, your MOI on this one is pretty high relative to the rest of them. So I think
exactly. That's right. There's just a natural trade-off that making a draw bias driver makes the MOI go down a little. So.
Yeah. So that's the piece I want to try to help everybody understand. Here's your driver face. Because the center of gravity is slightly towards the heel, even if you hit a shot right here, which looks like it's really close to the middle of the face, you're still getting some draw bias gear effect out of that, and it helps you in those situations. So that's what you've really made your 3 drivers do.
Exactly.
Now let me show you a chart, which is, I think, a huge testament to what you do. And I'm sure you do something like this already, but I want to put my, give you my stance on this one here. So I'll try that fancy eraser again. Cordy, you watching this? Check that out. Made everything go away. Didn't even miss anything.
Oh, it's amazing.
All right, so here's a 2020 driver MOI chart. So I measured all the MOIs from these particular drivers. The only one I'm missing on here was a Cobra driver, and it did that, but it's not on the chart yet. And I might actually pick your brain on that one a touch. Not so much to talk about other companies that that you're playing this game with, but here's my chart. Let's take a look at this one. Here's your ping driver, ping driver, ping driver, all top right. Now here's what the chart means. The moment of inertia, or the most forgiving drivers, are on the right-hand side. The left-hand side are the least forgiving drivers as far as MOI on the horizontal axis. Doesn't mean they're bad drivers. It's just they're in different places on the chart. The the y-axis is the depth of the center of gravity relative to one another. So the further back the CG is, the higher on this chart you'll get. So what I'm seeing out of what you did relative to your peers for sure is make an awesomely forgiving driver and move the CG back a little bit. So I think what I'm seeing anyway from the fittings that we're doing is that your drivers are performing awesome, especially that 410 plus. Usually relative to the other OEMs, we're seeing lower lofted drivers get fit for most golfers as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. We've done a lot to try to make our drivers naturally launch pretty high. So we know that people
they need it.
To try to, they need to launch the ball, but they like to play as kind of as low a lofted driver as they can.
Yep.
Like they like the idea of playing a lower lofted driver. They like to look at a lower lofted driver.
Yep.
But we know that higher launch would help them. So if we can do that with a lower lofted driver, that's great.
So out of all the testing that we've done, this is a Titleist driver, the TS2 Plus. But what we did there was we took the heavy weight and put it in. So now you've got more mass and ultimately a higher MOI.
Because MOI is a measure of the spread of the mass. The more mass you have, the higher the MOI.
Yep. So
super light driver would appear
lower. It would always be lower on this one. So relative, this is the importance of club fitting though. You have something that is massively forgiving in that 410 plus relative to take the Sub-Zero Maverick and move the heaviest weight to the front of the driver and put the lighter one in the back. And you've got a driver that would spin so little that it might be a really good one for someone who spins it a lot. However, it's not going to fit a whole ton of people, but this might be a rocket launcher for PGA Tour players who have closer to 2,500 or 3,000 RPMs of backspin and want to lower it some more. So, I mean, this is just an interesting way to do it. You can find this chart at GOLFTEC Club Fittings as soon as we're ready to go again. I think this is a really cool way to help people make a good decision on buying golf clubs.
Hey, Paul, you said something really interesting. So you guys intentionally were thinking about how to make your drivers launch higher because you know that people don't like going to a 12-degree driver or 14-degree driver. Was that an intentional kind of thing that you guys did?
Yeah, to an extent. As all things being equal, there's any club in the bag you can think of. People have just psychologically ideas about what they would like it to look like, what they would like it to say. Driver loft is one of those that most people prefer. Pros don't care. Pros don't care what the loft number says. It's much more about performance stats and whatever. But the rest of us, we all have egos and we're all playing for fun. And so people generally prefer their shaft to stay stiff. They prefer their driver to have a lower loft. They prefer their irons to look smaller and shinier if they can. And if we can deliver performance within that package, then all the better, right? There are some people who are like, I don't care what it looks like, just give me the best performance. And that's great. We love those people. But we have a firm grasp of, with irons, people would prefer to look at something a little smaller if they can. With putters, there's a certain look people would like. We still want to deliver all the performance we can within that look. So it's important, right? We're all We're not designing clubs for robots. We're designing clubs for people.
Yeah, you're nailing it for sure. All right, let me throw you one that's to throw this on its head. I'll stop sharing for a second. I'm thinking about how I could use this information to actually build a driver. So sorry, this will scare you. I'm the amateur who's got a little bit of information and wants to try something here. Have you seen Orlamar Slice Killer? Talk about retro and lousy. This thing's a bad driver.
Not super familiar with it, but let's go.
Offset driver.
Okay.
Okay. And it is made with the CG. Well, I'm not sure. I'm just hypothesizing that the designer of the club didn't actually understand how the CG would work best for that. They just made a driver that was offset and closed the face some. Fair enough. I mean, it's something. But the center of gravity on this is ever so slightly even towards the toe, quite honestly. So you're not getting that benefit of the gear effect. Help me understand this. So 96% of people who come into GOLFTEC slice, and they don't really know how to help themselves. That's why they sought out help. 93% say they either want to hit it straight or draw it. And really the other 7% just don't know what they're doing. They didn't even know how to answer the question. What keeps any clubhead designer really from adding all of the draw biased characteristics to a golf club to help every single person draw the ball? You could do that just with this driver. For example, I might add like even another 1/2 inch of offset to this. It won't look real pretty, but you're starting to build in the draw bias characteristic. Take the center of gravity and move it even more towards the heel. And then by doing so, you're going to take the adjustable weight, lower that thing right out of it. And I might even design the club from this view to have much less of a toe shape, take some of this off and add a ton of it down here to continue to move that CG. And then the part that would come last is the loft. And I'd probably lower it to about 4 or 5 degrees because you're going to spin this thing so much. Does any of that sound like it's, one, reasonable, and then two, I know you wouldn't have a golf club that looks like this, but I mean what I just described in my world would be a total slice killer.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I guess my answer would come back to because humans.
Yeah.
We've been through this. When I started the pain, we had the G5 driver and the G5 offset. Right, and the G5 offset driver was pretty close to what you just said. And in a fitting environment, if you took your ego out of it and it was just which one did you hit best, which one went longer and straighter, which is what everyone says they want.
Yeah.
G5 offset should have sold better than G5.
Right. Did
it sell even close to G5? No. Do people like to be pigeonholed as, hey, you're a hacker, there's your clubster? And so there's a perception, right? The pros draw the ball and hackers slice the ball. And it's a little more complicated than that. Pros are much more of a mixed bag. But you're right. It's definitely true that majority of people could use some help squaring it up. But they don't want it to be like slapping them in the face.
Yeah,
mostly.
It's too bad because that's what golf needs, man. It actually needs.
Yeah, and so what we've come to is like, how do you deliver that? But deliver that in a way that kind of looks good to the eye. That offset's an interesting one. Like we know what offset does. We know that it helps square the club up a little. But we've sort of gone away from doing that in a big way on our drivers because it stops people trying it.
Yeah.
And if you don't try it, you definitely don't buy it. So we don't use that as much as a lever. We use the CG a little, which is more internal and you don't really see it.
Mm-hmm. It's
still there helping you, but it's not kind of, hey, look, here's this big hacker's driver.
Yeah.
And the reality is we have plenty of pros that put their driver in draw bias because they want draw bias. So it's not,
no doubt about
it isn't hackers versus pros, but for some reason people feel like that. They feel like if it's too obvious that I'm playing an anti-slice driver, it means I failed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a horrible person.
Exactly.
I can't do it. I shouldn't play golf. No, I
don't want to make you play good golf and feel bad about your life, right? That's not.
Well, don't be surprised, Paul. One day you might see a golf club CAD driver that's all set to draw.
There you go, and it will have a small but appreciative following.
It'll be really small. Those people won't slice. You got it, Cordy. I'll send you one as soon as I can get that done.
I would appreciate that. That'd be great.
How
I'll
are
be
you
your
playing,
first
by the way?
testimonial.
We need to check
You
in.
know what?
a lot
I'll be
going on.
honest. Since I came on this live, the game has gone downhill.
Yeah.
And I lost a skin, so I owe him $5. So, unfortunately, I couldn't recommend going on Facebook Lives as a game improvement method.
Yeah, every day it's taking you away from your practice.
It's almost like you're not really, trying your best out there now.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
It looks like you're putting a lot of X's on Will Robbins' scorecard. Is that true?
There's some X's going on here. It's not all fairways and greens, unfortunately.
Cordy, you have a G400 driver.
I do.
Do you have that to show? Can we look at the bottom of that thing?
I got it right there.
What's the loft on that one?
I got a 10.5.
Okay. Paul, what if you had to give him a 410 of some kind? What might you start with for Cordy to fit in?
I would, unless he's telling us there's some huge miss that he's hitting all the time with that, I'd start with some specs that are at least similar, and then you're comparing apples to apples, and then go from there. So I'd at least start with probably a P410, 10.5.
You said you hit that really well, and it's well fit for you.
Yep.
Anything with that club that you still fight as a mishit? We're gonna fit you from afar.
No, not really.
You just hit a ball into the left rough. Is that normal, Gordy? Come on, be honest.
No, I like to miss it right, but we're not. It's early in the season. I got a lot of forgiveness. I got really low expectations right now.
Do you feel like
be nice to myself?
You're doing great, and I know I don't help your expectations any, but I love you, man. Do you spin it too much or too little? If you had to pick one.
Probably too little, more than too much.
Too little, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that big of a problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those nice things where I've actually fit to my driver, and I kind of like it. So it's a good spot to be. I'd recommend it for folks.
So I might tell him, Paul, tell me what you think. Here's what I would suggest he start with. I want to hear what you'd start with. What was the loft on that, 40?
10.5.
Okay, 10.5, 410 plus, standard setting, neutral.
I think so, yeah. And then my next question would be shaft, and
right.
What's he playing now, and what if anything? See if we can see from this shot. Like, does he get the ball up in the air a bit more?
Cordy, we're watching and judging. Oh man, that's your real swing?
Oh my goodness.
Or is that your face?
That's my real swing.
Facebook Live swing.
I'd maybe send him for some GOLFTEC lessons first, maybe.
Oh boy.
Wow.
This is going downhill for me.
Why'd you show that on? I mean, people are. Oh, that's not good.
Oh my goodness. Why do you say the plus, Nick? Why would you say that versus the normal?
It sounds like you're just looking for neutral and you don't want to lower your spin. So I wouldn't bother with the LST for you unless you want to add another degree of loft. Maybe that'll be a useful tool. I think that's the part that I like about the pin drivers so much. And many of the other OEMs followed suit really nicely. But you got those three very distinct driver heads, and you can make them all fit somebody, though. Like I could go play that SFT. I would just aim slightly towards the heel with every shot. Probably wouldn't notice anything different than playing a G410 plus. It's just understanding that is not something that the average guy really gets yet. Which is why we're doing this.
The LST can be quite alluring. Like if you're on the low end of spin, Cordy, you could probably, your best shots for the LST would probably be beautiful. Like you've got some decent speed, that low spin, but then if you just catch them a little high on the face and they fall out of the sky, like the miss hits would probably be better with the flop.
Yep, right. But literally any one of those could fit you, Cordy. That's just probably where I was.
Gotcha. Makes a ton of sense.
So I haven't really I've started to dabble. It's so hard taking putters apart to put them in my MOI machine. But I've started doing that. Are you playing around much with MOI on your putters, Paul?
You mean you got the auditor machine? So you mean the MOI of like the whole built club, or just the
head? Well, just the head. Sorry.
So it confuses people even around our office. The MOI you could be talking about around the head, around the shaft, or around the whole club. So. Sorry
if I've been vague. Usually I'm speaking about the MOI of the club head on the Y-axis or the X-axis. Sorry.
So we do. We look at that. So, obviously swing weight is kind of the
Mhm.
industry standard-ish way of talking about weight of clubs, but there's nothing magic about swing weight. You can make two clubs with the same swing weight that feel very different. Similarly, you can make two clubs with the same moment of inertia that feel different too. So it's not the be all and the end all, but we kind of look at overall total just mass of the club, then swing weight, and then MOI. It's like three measures of feel. And to be honest, if you have the overall mass and the MOI, you don't really need swing weight. You can just use those two.
Yeah.
So we will look at that quite a bit and try to dial in where do we want this particular putter in the line to be in terms of moment of inertia.
Okay.
Because it plays a lot into how the golfer perceives the balance and feel.
Yeah, I can see that totally. It's abstract to probably people watching this. That's why you should try a bunch of different putters for sure. Tour players, do they tend to like, in your experience from what you've seen, and it's going to be personal preference, but lighter or heavier putters and lower or higher MOI?
It is a real mixed bag, I would say. Compared to 30 years ago, almost all players are heavier than they were. Putters have got heavier. Some of the original pings were under 300 grams in the head. Now, 300-gram head would be considered ultra
Oh,
light.
so light, right?
340, 350, 360 is more of a typical weight. We've been pretty stable on that though for a while. Some players will dabble in heavier, and then sometimes they'll find it helps them on kind of shorter putts, feeling more stable, but then it's actually a little bit of a hindrance on longer putts. So there's, just like everything in this world, there's a trade-off. So you might make, if you're looking for real help with shorter putts and more stability in the putter, a heavier and a higher MOI putter will help that. If you're looking for a little more of that kind of artistic touch on long putts, maybe a lighter putter helps with that. So that's kind of our trade-off, depending on, even tour players are a real mixed bag in terms of what they want more help with.
It seems like from my experience watching tour players up close is that when the guys who are putting really well almost don't care so much about light or heavy, so they tend to gravitate middle-ish or slightly lighter. The ones who aren't putting very well relative to their peers, they're still awesome at it. Those guys tend to like the heavier ones. Does that seem, could you at least...
I think there's something to that. When players are searching a little bit, they're just looking, then often they're just looking for a change in feel or a change in look. And quite often will gravitate to a heavier putter, but some will make that work for their whole career. A lot will try it for a while and then maybe go back to something a bit more traditional. So sometimes you just need to be kicked out of the comfort zone and try something different. And I think that's part of it with the player.
Okay. I did measure, can you talk about the Hepler line? I barely got to see that at demo day because I was frozen solid.
We're this close to launching it everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, can you talk about that one?
Yeah, so that's our new line. It was sort of scheduled to be in every store you could imagine in March, and then the apocalypse hit. So it'll be with you as soon as people are back playing golf again. But it's meant to be. It is our kind of firmer feeling lines. We've added some more multi-material to it. We're using aluminium and steel together, so you can kind of, just like with the driver, increasing the moment of inertia, increasing the spread of mass. The same thing applies on a putter. If you make it for a given shape, if you can make it as stable as you can, then on miss hits it performs more similar. So we use all the mallet and mid-mallet putters in the line are a combination of aluminium and steel together with this kind of two-tone look. So there's a black and a copper look. The copper look is actually steel, and the black is aluminium. But it's a solid face, so you can make a putter feel really soft and quiet by using a polymer insert. So most insert putters are trying to soften the feel. Our Sigma 2 putters are trying to soften the feel. If you want to make a putter more clicky and firm feeling, it's better to have a solid steel face or solid aluminium face. So these ones, Sigma 2 has the groove and it has the insert for soft. This one's meant to feel firm.
Okay.
What it does is it gives you a real perception, a different perception as a golfer. It actually gives you more audio feedback. So if you're someone who uses more of that audio feedback, you want to perceive a different sound when you just hit it slightly different on the face. And that's part of your how what you use to kind of inform the next part and the next part. These work really well. If you're someone who doesn't want that, and they want a soft sounding, soft feeling putter, the Sigma 2 is for that. So we just feel like there's room in the world for both.
Yeah, and I'm excited to try the Hepler stuff, quite honestly. I don't like these soft, squishy feeling putters. The ball speed is affected by that insert that you have, and your feel for how you're going to hit a 5-foot putt is just not the same. I'm not a fan. I'd rather just do stainless steel like you're more considering. This, by the way, Jack Nicklaus's putter, a replica of that one, or whatever McGregor was selling back then. 7,000 grams per centimeter squared. This is illegal. Jack today would be breaking the rules. They didn't have MOI.
I believe that rule only applies on, is it only drivers or maybe it's only full swing clubs? And we've made putters that are higher than that.
It's kind of vague. I interpret it as it gets down into hybrids, but that's for another day.
Yeah, I'm not, but it doesn't apply to putters. So there are plenty of putters on the market. And with that extra mass, obviously, like some of the bigger, heavier putters, you can really go big on the moment of inertia.
Okay. Important one for putter fitting, I think, or just putting in general. This is a theory that's been thrown around for a long time, that when you hit a ball, there's a specific sort of launch or a roll that you want the ball to move for the first foot of a putt. Can you elaborate some on what you feel is the best launch and ground conditions that you can try to optimize?
We could spend half an hour on that because I think it's an interesting
let's not do that.
topic. Let's not do that. We've even sponsored some academic studies on it. People perceive a lot of importance in getting the ball rolling quicker. It's actually difficult to prove that really helps. That's why we spend half an hour.
I'm asking.
There's nothing inherent in the physics that says a ball rolling quicker goes in the hole better.
Correct.
But I think there's a lot to the player's perception of when they look up where the ball should be and what it should be looking like. And if you get a mismatch of where you expect it to be with where it is, it really messes with your ability to then make the next putt and the next putt. So I think it's more psychological than it is physics. So we have a guideline of trying to get the ball to answer the actual question, get the ball to launch in a window of like 1 to 2 degrees. It's enough to get it up out of its little impression it's in on the grass, but not so much that it's hopping. And with kind of as minimal backspin as you can. It's not that you need to have a ton of topspin, but just not a ton of backspin. So that gives you a nice predictable roll. A predictable roll feeds back into confidence, which feeds back into better performance.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the idea that you're supposed to hit this and the ball just can't skid at all has been perpetuated for a long time. I don't get it. Sounds like you don't either.
There's a lot of rabbit holes. It's very easy to go down in golf, and that's definitely one. Like, it's very easy to obsess over some of the numbers and go, but this should be 0, or this should be 2. And it's like, you know what? Did the ball go in the hole?
Yeah.
Then
with a 10-foot putt, you can do that about 5,000 different ways and make that thing with different launch conditions. It's not the equivalent of me standing up here trying to hit a 300-yard driver that lands in the middle of the fairway. I have like 3 ways I can do that, and so do general golfers. That's where it matters more. Not trying to get the specific launch and roll of the putter. Question came in for you. What do you think about this one? So this is from some of our students. I'm in a G400 Max now, but struggling to manage launch and spin. Am I chasing something not possible by wanting a flatter, piercing trajectory from this club head?
So they're looking to bring down the ball flight from the sound of that, right?
How I'm reading it. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the obvious thing would be to put it in the big minus position. That's the lowest loft setting on the club. If you're okay with bringing launch and spin down together, I mean, that's the reality, right? If you bring loft down, you bring launch and spin down, you get a flat putt.
Yeah.
If you bring loft up, you do the opposite. If you want higher launch and lower spin, you either need to hit it high on the face or you need to change your swing. Like, you can't do that by just moving the loft.
You got it. And this sounds like a person who probably, if they've tried this for a while, this G400 Max, and can't get the ball flight they want, they just selected the wrong driver for their game. And it's not so much that it's a problem for them, but they would have been better suited, say, in the G400, like what Cordy's got, a little lower loft, and that
like
would
an
have
LST or So
that's what I would recommend to this person now. Try an LST or a Max. Don't do the SFT, and try it with a little bit lower loft. Next question. Ooh, this one's a heady one too, and I'm a little interested in your answer. The deeper the center of gravity gets, meaning the further back in the club head you build the center of gravity, does that change the deflection in the shaft?
Yeah, that could be a really long answer. To an extent, yes. Probably not as much as you might think, but enough that if you're going from, say, a really forward CG driver to a really back CG driver, the same shaft will perform differently. I mean, in general, if you go from a ping to a Callaway to a TaylorMade, just because that shaft you like works well in the ping doesn't necessarily mean it'll work well in a different model of club, because the head makes the shaft bend in different ways. So,
yeah. Do you see? So I ride with the idea that sure, it changes. Everything changes something if you have to define that. But at what point does it become really significant?
Yeah, it's not like if you're playing. I'm trying to think of a good example, but a really low launching hazardous or something. It's not going to suddenly be this high flying shaft in someone else's head.
You're going to get more change in the product by changing 1 degree of loft than you are worrying about is
generally speaking, yeah, unless you're going for a wild difference in shaft. Yeah, I would say in general, as a rule, as the center of mass goes back, you're going to get a little more lead, a little more shaft bend and impact. So you'll get, as part of what gives you a little higher flight with the same head.
Yeah. I just wonder, I'm still stuck on, while I agree that happens, I know it happens. Does it matter though? I mean, are you even going to change the strike location a millimeter in that circumstance? If they're relatively the same, I mean, you're changing something. CG might have moved back the tiniest little bit in all these drivers, but does it matter? Does it change the strike location on the club enough to be able to?
Yeah, I would guess it depends how dramatic the change is, right? If you go from one of those old mini drivers to like our G410 Plus, that
Right.
probably will matter. If you're going from our G410 LST to our G410 Plus, it's probably not going to be that noticeable.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Cordy, what are you doing? You're just standing there. Do you want to talk? Do you want to say something?
I'm enjoying the conversation. Nick, you love this conversation. This just gets you going. You're enjoying this.
Man, there's so much to learn that it hasn't been put out in any sort of content this way. This is why I honestly like talking to guys like Paul who design these clubs. This is what students actually need to understand a little bit more, or go get a professional club fitting. This is what a good fitter is going to get.
Yeah, for sure. No, I enjoyed your drawings earlier, Nick. I think that brought a lot of clarity for me, just illustrating, a point very simply, and I appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people learned a bunch of good stuff today.
Did it remind you of something one of your small children would have drawn?
Potentially. I mean, you're pretty good. I'll be honest. You're not a bad drawer, Nick.
I'm trying. You don't. I don't really need the compliments from you. You don't give me many, so it feels weird, right? I'm not sure. I feel this. Paul, I'm down 1-0 on the games. You ready to give me a shot?
You got a new game for me?
Yeah.
I don't have like a Connect 4 board here right now.
All you need is your hands. I wanted to play Twister from afar, but it got vetoed by our producers.
Okay, what are we doing?
Rocks, paper, scissors.
All right.
Do the counting.
All right. What are we doing? A countdown or count up? What works here? What are we doing?
Wait, is this best of 3 or is this a one-off? Like
I think it's 1.
All right.
I feel good at 1. I don't feel good at 3.
On 3 or after 3? 1, 2, 3.
We'll go 3, 2, 1, and then you go. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, disaster.
This is lava. Melts your rock.
What's happening?
1-1.
Well, so I think he changed the rules of the game on me.
No, rocks, paper, scissors, lava. I'm surprised you didn't heard.
I have no idea what he's doing, Paul. I apologize for that.
I'll take the defeat like a man. It's okay. I'm English. We're used to glorious defeat.
This is the only way I can beat you, Paul.
Oh, man.
Should we talk about irons and wedges some other time, Paul? We should do that.
I'm game. I'm stuck in the house at least a little bit for the foreseeable future. So
well, let's see if we can make some time to talk some irons and wedges another day.
I would love that.
Awesome. Yeah, we did a little podcast on that. bag of Piners, Paul. That was
We
great.
talked about blueprint irons and everything, didn't we? Yeah, I'm happy to get back.
I think we should do it again. Maybe we could get Nick drawing some things and make it even a little bit more entertaining. I don't know.
We could have you playing polo in the background, just riding the horse around. And
I just want to see Cody riding a horse. He doesn't even need to be playing polo.
Okay, we're trending downward here. Let's call it a wrap for today, guys. This was super fun. Thanks for hanging out with us. Nick, we'll be back next week. Don't worry, folks. We've got more coming for you.
Yeah, thanks.